welcome to Brothers on the Board, the podcast where we become better teachers together. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Brothers on the Board. It is another Tuesday. We are back again with what we think is an interesting episode, all about social media, which is something that is a real, I want to call it a problem in education in certain contexts. It can also be, obviously there's good things about social media, but there's also a lot of problems. And we're going to be highlighting one specifically that came out fairly recently in a New York Times article. And we'll get into that more in just a minute. We're continuing our quest at growing our podcast and continuing to reach people, other educators who are like-minded and hopefully can learn something from this and hopefully we can learn from as well. So if you would, as always, please consider following us on our Facebook page, Brothers on the Board. Wes, it is July 15th. It's starting to get
it is
scary.
moving real fast. I need it to slow down just a little bit.
Dude, we were in Target this evening. We're walking through Target and they started with those stupid back to school sales. So depressing, man. It's always so depressing. Like, I want to make something clear. I love teaching. I enjoy my career, but it is hard in some situations. Sometimes it's hard to go back, man. It's hard to getting up early.
They say, like, if you get paid for anything, you're going to enjoy it less. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. Like, even if it's the biggest hobby in the world, you're going to enjoy it less. So, a job's a
job. Like, could you play Magic the Gathering every day, all day, 8 hours a day, and get paid for it? Nah, you'd probably. Yeah, same. If I was, doing something like my greatest hobby, playing video games, right? Something like that. Couldn't do that. That would, it would just ruin it for me.
Yeah,
honestly, So it's one of those things where, when you're a student, I remember, if those of you listening probably remember being students and waking up early and thinking, oh man, I've only got 2 weeks left of summer and then I got to start going to school. It doesn't change when you're a teacher. That same feelings, nothing changed. Still same situation. Love my students, love where I work, love my coworkers, but man, it's tough to get up early again. I think that's the biggest.
Yeah, that's if we could start school at like 11 o'clock, I think I'd be so for it.
Yeah. Getting home, if you went, you'd be getting home late, right? But hey, that's a different subject for a different time. We do need to kind of get into what we're going to be discussing today. Before we start, I want to give a huge shout out to some of our friends who sent us this idea. I had actually seen this article that we're going to be discussing about social media before it was sent to me, but for whatever reason, it never even clicked that I should discuss this on the podcast until it was brought to my attention. And then I was like, oh yeah, this is actually a really good topic because it's
and I want to let everyone know that I have not read the article. I just know the topic. So
yeah, you're just reacting to it. So yeah, that it'll give for a more genuine reaction, hopefully. So today we're talking about school students, and social media. Basically all the things about social media that is a problem and kind of what we can do about it. But the real anchor here, the real highlight article, is an article that was published in the New York Times, and the title is "Students Target Teachers in Group TikTok Attack Shaking Their School." 7th and 8th graders in Pennsylvania impersonating their teachers posted disparaging, lewd, racist, and homophobic videos in the first known mass attack of its kind in the U.S. Anytime you see something called a mass attack, that's a little scary, right? That's a problem. And as we're going to get into this article and kind of discuss what it is, one of the biggest concerns is that the students that are involved in this don't necessarily see it as a big deal. And they see it as kind of a joke, a prank. But this is a problem, right? So here is kind of the gist of it. A handful of teachers were told that they had been impersonated online and that TikTok accounts had been created in their name and had essentially been posting um, very slanderous type things about them, saying that they uh, things dealing with pedophilia, things dealing with sexual relations amongst the teachers themselves, just a whole bunch of things, ultimately pretending as though it was their account and that they were the ones posting it. And when the teachers really kind of started looking into it, it wasn't just like, oh, it's not one or two teachers. It's like the whole building, right? Like all these teachers are having all of these things posted about them in very personal and very disparaging ways. So this is a real issue, right? And from my understanding, the I think the punishment ended up being suspension. I want to say, um, but it says that in a statement, the Great Valley School District said it had taken steps to address 22 fictitious TikTok accounts impersonating teachers at the middle school. It described the incident as a gross misuse of social media that profoundly impacted our staff. Last month, two female students at the school, publicly posted an apology video on a TikTok account using the name of a 7th grade teacher as a handle. The pair, who did not disclose their names, described the imposter videos as a joke and said teachers had blown the situation out of proportion. We never meant for it to get this far, obviously, one of the students said in the video. I never wanted to get suspended. Move on, learn to joke, the other student said about a teacher. I am 13 years old, she added, using an expletive, I'm going to get that out, for emphasis, and you're like 40 going on 50. So, this is a big problem. If this is something that becomes widespread, and as we all know with TikTok especially, you have these challenges that circulate pretty frequently, and they go viral, and they move
Yeah, like the
fast through our
devious
society,
licks
right?
ones that were going on last year. Like we had a major issue with the devious licks.
Yeah, they were stealing toilet seats. They were
were
like just
destroying
doing stuff like
property.
that.
Like it was a lot of vandalism.
Yeah,
It was
vandalism,
bad.
literally just. Yeah, in this situation where you have students who are impersonating teachers and making slanderous, disparaging, homophobic, racist, just really nasty comments under their names as if it's them. I mean, the punishment ended up being what, suspension? Realistically, what should be done about something like this? Because I think this is a lot. I think this is much, much worse than that. I think you're getting into some legality issues here beyond, oh, you broke a school rule.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that I mean, you get more consequences students would for like cyberbullying, right? Pulling a fire alarm. Yeah.
Like these are things that are illegal, right? Like, we had, it's like if you have a police officer in your school, right? You have a school resource officer, and a student strikes or punches or hits this police officer. It's like this goes beyond school now. But like you're not getting detention for this. Like you hit a police officer, you assaulted a police officer. This is now a legal problem, right? Like it goes beyond that. When I read this, when I look at this story, like these are people's lives that you're messing with here now. This is not a joke. This is not a prank. This is something that could get somebody fired.
I mean, it could go into their personal life. It could affect their relationships.
Yeah, their spouse could see it and have a lot of questions, right? There's a lot of issues here. People who are, practicing religion or in church or in certain social groups or whatever, it could cause a lot of issues there as well. I mean, there's just a lot of problems that this could cause when you're slandering somebody to this extent, where it's just really, really, really bad. To me, I see it very similarly to stealing somebody's identity, taking their credit card, to taking their social security name and signing, or their social security number, and signing up for something in
Mm-hmm.
their name, right? You are effectively
Mm-hmm.
pretending to be them and negatively impacting
Yes.
their life.
I don't know if it's like as severe, but yeah, I see it very, very equally to that. But I do think partially we should also just like kind of be more educated on like social media awareness. Like all the time, I have people who be like, "Hey, is this like a fake account of you?" Or like my profile has been hacked. And it's like your profile wasn't hacked. They made a fake account, and like there's ways to identify that it's a fake account, right?
I mean, I'm sure there is. You know, there's ways to identify it, but that doesn't. I don't know if that changes the fact that it's
I'm
okay.
not saying at all
You
that
know
it's
what I mean?
okay. I'm not saying that. I just think like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
also that like we need some awareness around that as well. Like people need educated in social media, like using social media.
Now, when you say we, do you mean students or
Both, I
teachers?
think, just as a society, I think older people, older generations, tend to not have as much education, like our parents. Like, let's just be real. Like,
Yeah. Which, I mean, to be fair, you do have. I've seen teachers post things that makes you say, why would you post that? Like, why would you put that out publicly? Like, it's not. And it's
mm-hmm,
people my age, right? It's people that grew up with social media, and still they post things that are questionable. So yeah, but it's also like this sense of um, consequence to a degree. Like, you can't just do what you want, like, kind of thing. When it
mm-hmm,
impacts other people, whether it's cyberbullying or whether it's, I mean, in a lot of ways, that kind of is a form of cyberbullying
yeah,
towards a teacher. I know that sounds a
mm-hmm,
little strange, but it is. And I just, I feel like it should be more than just, oh well, I didn't want to get suspended. You think I wanted to get suspended? No, you didn't want to get suspended. You're upset because you got suspended. You're not upset because of what you could have done to somebody's life.
yeah.
You're not taking it seriously.
You're not being accountable for your actions, right? You just are upset
No.
that you had a consequence.
Yeah, are you learning anything from this? Do you know why this is a problem? Right? I think a lot of times when it comes to consequences in schools, we we miss out on that part of the equation in terms of it's like, oh, okay, you're suspended, but then 3 days later you come back and you're like, well, I don't really see why it was a problem to begin with. I don't really care. Right? I
Yeah,
still don't really care. Like, um, it, it's like, I'm not sure what you do about that to teach. Uh, it really ultimately comes down to teaching people, like, what's ethical, what's
yeah.
okay, what's not okay.
And to some extent with this one, it's like teaching empathy, right? And that's very difficult, especially with like 7th and 8th grade students. Like that's very difficult to be able to
It is.
put your actions and like how that affects someone else. Like and also like let's be real. A lot of times students don't see us as like teachers as like humans, right? We're like these robots that just sit at the school all day long. And like when they see us out in public, they're like, whoa, you actually are a person? You have like a normal life? Yeah, we do.
Yeah, I remember growing up and seeing some of my teachers out just randomly, and it was always just bizarre. Right? It was bizarro world. It didn't seem,
Yeah,
it seemed
it's like
so
you
out of
think that like
place. Like,
like you leave for the day, we're like, bye, have a good time. They get on the buses, and then we just go sit in our classroom in the dark. Like, wait.
we, we, we shut down like a robot. You do. Next day at 7 a.m.
Yeah, yeah. So I
Power
think
right
that
back
like
up.
that's extremely difficult, right? Like, how do you teach empathy, right? And we talk about that with like social emotional learning, right? Well, that's the big phrase now. And we try to focus on that some, but also there. there's also debate that could be had, like, is that the school's place to do, or are we just there to educate just the curriculum, right?
No, I think it's our place to do that. I think it's our place to have conversations with. I mean, as a teacher, that's really, I think, a huge part of your job is teaching students and teaching kids like what's okay, what's not okay. Like, I'm helping you learn how
Mm-hmm.
to become an adult. I'm trying to help you become a functioning member of society, and I want to be a teammate with their parents to try to make that happen with what
Mm-hmm.
little time that I have them. And I hope, I have a son. I hope that his teachers do, the same. I hope when he's at school and he makes a bad decision, they pull him aside and they explain to him why that's not okay. Right. I want that. And, having kids myself, I think made a big difference for me with the way I looked at teaching and stuff. But yeah, no, I think it is. I think it is a huge part of what we do. So yeah, this part of social media is a real problem. Now, obviously, this is an isolated incident that took place at one school, right? The question is, okay, is this, now that we're coming up on this new school year, like, how is this something we will see
Mm-hmm.
more of going forward, right? You read this article, and I could see a seventh grader reading this and thinking, I could get away with that. Like, okay, maybe I get suspended or what. I could see a seventh grader seeing this and saying,
Yeah.
that looks fun.
Yeah.
I could do this, right? So is it like, okay, is there going to be copycat attempts at doing this? Is this going to be a viral? Is this going to be a challenge type thing that they're going to be
Mm-hmm.
putting out to each other? Um, because this is something that was, building wide, right? So hopefully that's not the case, and obviously they're school districts, if and when this does happen, they come down on it pretty harshly, just so students understand that impersonating others and posting uh, comments that are illegal in nature, um, demeaning in nature, harassing in nature
Mm-hmm.
is not okay. So hopefully that's the case. Um, but aside from the extreme here, obviously this is like I said a minute ago, a very isolated incident. What are some other problems with social media that you run into at your
Oh,
school?
I mean, obviously, I mean, one of the big issues that education's been dealing with since the beginning of the internet, right? The cyberbullying. We talked about it a little bit. Like, students feel like they can say whatever they want to other students, and it gets like really gray area where, like, it didn't happen at school, it happened online, and how does the school handle that? And like, it gets messy with that.
Hmm. And one of the big things that I've noticed, especially with cell phones, right, is you have, before, like when I was growing up, right? When I was growing up, Facebook wasn't a thing. It wasn't a thing until I was almost in college when Facebook took off. Um, MySpace was just kind of coming around, so you didn't have this, like, yeah, you had some like messaging, instant messenger. You had the all MSN Messenger and the I was it ICU or ICQ, the
I
one that
don't
go
know. I don't know that one at
that
all.
one.
That's before my time. AOL, was that a thing?
AOL was one of them, but I think it was, I called ICQ, something like that. But you know, before then, it was like, okay, you talked to a few people on the phone during the weekend, but for the most part, you just kind of chilled at home by yourself, played your games, went outside and shot some ball. Of course, we came from a place that was like, in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah.
right? We came from a place that you didn't have a ton of people on the block. And when you went to school the next week, the only things that had happened Friday, right? Saturday and Sunday is like a time skip. Nothing important happened. Now it's like you have drama, dude, building over the
Mm-hmm.
weekend, right? They're messaging, they're posting stuff about each other on social media, they're liking comments, they're disliking comments, they're spreading gossip. And then by the time Monday rolls around, some of them are fighting mad about some stuff that's
Mm-hmm.
happened over the weekend. And you're walking back into school like, whew, man,
Yeah,
good to be back. And you have no
the
clue
storm
what
that's
has
coming,
happened
you
over the
know?
weekend. Yeah, you have no idea. And then like those students that were happy go lucky Friday, they're not happy go lucky
Yep.
anymore. They hate each other. And like and you don't know it's coming, and it kind of
Mm-hmm.
comes out of nowhere. And then another thing is like you they're spreading this stuff throughout the day. They're texting each other, they're sending messages, and it's all in secret. Like you don't know
Mm-hmm.
what's happening. All of a sudden kids are fighting mad in the room, and you're like, whoa, 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 I was talking about this book, and now you guys are mad. Like, I don't know where you like. They've been trying to text and send messages and stuff, and you try to limit cell phone use, but it's hard to curb it
Yeah.
entirely. Um, so is this something that we need to? What can teachers really realistically do about it? I mean, obviously, curbing cell phone usage, I think, is definitely
Absolutely.
one thing. Personally, I know that Ohio recently passed a law that stated that schools had to have some kind of cell phone rule on the books. Um, I think our school is kind of working towards what that's going to look like. Um, but I'm all for it
Yeah.
just because it is such a fight
Mm-hmm.
every day. Outside of that, it becomes is this something that should be more federally regulated? Should it be like a license? You have to be this age to create an account or run an account.
Yeah.
Outside of that, it's difficult to say what teachers can do
Yeah. I mean,
specifically.
other than just like trying to keep the cell phones out of the classroom as much as possible, which my school does. We have a pretty firm policy on cell phones need to be in lockers. They stay in the lockers locked up.
Yeah, I mean, we have policies where it's like, okay, you just can't have it out in class, but they'll have it in their pocket,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and then it becomes a hey, put your phone up, hey, put your phone up kind of thing. I can take it, but I can only keep it to the end of the bell, and
Mm-hmm.
I have to give it back to them, which is fine by me. I
No, I
don't
do.
want
I
to
do
keep your
not. I
phone.
do not want to hold on to. I will not take your phone. That is not something I will do.
Yeah, it's weird because students are always like, oh, he just wants to take. No, I don't want to bother your phone. I want
I
nothing
don't
to do with
want
your
your
phone.
personal items in my possession.
No, would rather not. Um, would rather not. So this is one of those things. It's tough to answer, but I think it comes back to kind of what you were mentioning earlier, teaching students what's responsible and
Mm-hmm.
what's not, and you try your absolute best to curb it as much as you can. That's not to say that you can eliminate the misuse of social media entirely. Hopefully, you contain it, and hopefully you do what you can. But it is a very
Yeah,
difficult
we
thing
just
to
have to
control.
teach them about like the implication of their actions, and try to teach empathy the best you can, and how to handle situations, and hope that they make the right choices. Like it's ultimately a choice that they have to make. We can just give them the best possible chance of doing that. So,
Yeah, and it's kids are kids. They're
mm-hmm.
going to make mistakes. It's just ultimately, what do you learn from it? What do you take away from it? How can you teach students that what they're doing is not okay, or it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
okay, or
Yep.
whatever, right? So, all right, it has been 25 minutes of kind of a shorter one as we continue to roll through these summer months of some of these kind of on but off topic type things. We hope that everyone has something to kind of take away from this conversation, and it's just something to consider. Whether you are a teacher or you're a parent yourself, you have kids, always try to be aware of what they are doing on social media. We have plenty of students, trust me, who um, are doing things on social media that I'm sure plenty of parents aren't always aware of. So please make sure you're trying to keep up with that. And we will see you next week on Brothers on the Board. Have a fantastic week. We'll see you next time.